Good morning, Year 5. Okay, today we are looking at relative clauses. We've done this lots and lots in class. Just might need to fish it out from the back of our brains since having time off over Christmas. So before we start looking at relative clauses, can you work out which of these words is the odd one out? So either write it on a piece of paper near you or pause the video and tell someone else who is in the room with you. Then press play when you're ready. Which is the odd one out and why? Okay, did we manage to work that out? Which is my odd one out? But why? What are all the others? What are she, he, they, we and I? Their word classification are... Oh, my pen's not liking it. Pronouns. Now, the job of a pronoun is to replace the noun. So if I was writing a story about Bob, it would save me having to say Bob walked down the street, then Bob did this, then Bob did this, then Bob did this, because I could just use he and I wouldn't have Bob in every single sentence, so it makes it less repetitive. But what is the role of which, or what is which first of all? It is a relative pronoun. Now what do these do? These add extra information to nouns already used. So if I had, my sentence was Bob walked down the street, I could then have Bob with the curly ginger hair that had the curly ginger hair walk down the street, because then I'm identifying which Bob it is, so it makes it easy to work out which one. What are my other relative pronouns though? Can you remember? So pause the video again, write them on a piece of paper or tell someone in the room and press play when you are ready. My relative pronouns are who, which, when, where, whose and that. Now some of these are used when we are talking about people, some of them are used about things, some are both, some are places, but we know all of this because we smashed that in school. So just to recap, if we're struggling, relative pronouns come along with a relative clause. I can't have a relative clause that makes sense if it doesn't start with a relative pronoun. So for example, if I had, she lives in Worcester, Worcester is the noun, but I could add a bit extra to it. Which is a cathedral city. Which is my relative pronoun, but which is a cathedral city is the whole relative clause. Or, that's the girl. That's a fine sentence on its own, it works. Okay, girl is my noun. Who lives near school is my relative clause because I have used who as my relative pronoun. Okay, remember they can be positioned at different places. They're not always at the end, which we are very good at doing, but they're not just at the end. So I could have Rachel liked the new chair, which was very comfortable. So it's adding extra information to the word chair by using which, and then I've got the whole relative clause. Or they can be embedded in the sentence. Jamie, so my noun, who, my relative pronoun, who scored the winning goal, was congratulated by his team. Remember, you must include your commas. Okay, so if it's at the end of the sentence, you just need it before, but if it's in the middle, you need it either side. And, very important this one, if I get rid of my relative clause, the sentence, the main clause, needs to make sense on its own. If it doesn't make sense on its own, then I've not done it correctly. Here I've got two sentences and we're going to add some relative clauses to them. So looking at the first one, the rocket took off as a crowd of spectators watched with eager eyes. Now if I'm going to add a relative clause to that, best thing to do first of all is find my nouns. So can you work out what the nouns are in this sentence? Oh, don't want that bit down there. Okay, so I could choose where to add my relative clauses. Don't want to add them to all of them because that would be the most cluttered sentence in the world and not make sense. I'm just going to add it to one of them. Okay, I'm going to choose rocket because I think I could really describe the rocket to make it sound more exciting. So I need a relative pronoun that is appropriate to describe a rocket. So I'm not going to use who because I'm not talking about a person, or not going to talk about when because we're not talking about time here. Might go with the rocket that. Okay, then I need to say something about my rocket. So I've gone with the rocket that was made of titanium took off as the crowd of spectators watched with the eager eyes. Adding that was made of titanium can make you almost imagine that you've got a row of different rockets. One's made out of titanium, one's steel, one's copper. But because we've got this relative clause, we know it is the titanium rocket that has taken off. However, I have forgotten something with this relative clause. What have I forgotten? My commas, I need them either side because it is an embedded one. Okay, on to the next one. As Tony squinted through the rocket's window, he could make out large craters on the surface of the new planet. Can you work out what my nouns are in that sentence before I do? So pause it, tell someone in the room or write them on the paper. My nouns are Tony, rocket's window, craters and planet. So it doesn't matter which one I choose to add my relative clause to. I'm only going to choose one because I don't want to clutter it too much. And I think I'm going to go with craters. So I'm going to add a bit more information to the craters because it's not every day you see one of them. So can you think of what relative pronoun would be appropriate to use with craters? I've chosen which, obviously can't use who because it's not to do with people, so I'm going to go with which, and then I need to think of the rest of my relative clause. Can you think of one first though? Pause the video, write it down on a piece of paper and then press play when you're ready. I went with which were the size of small lakes, so I could say he could make out large craters which were the size of small lakes on the surface of the new planet. However, I have forgotten something once again, which many of us do forget. So what is it that I am missing? Commas either side because it is embedded in the middle of my whole sentence. But remember, if I take out both relative clauses, both sentences still make sense without them. Now, your task for today, you've got a paragraph on your class notebook. You're going to use your pen tool to underline all the relative clauses you can find in there. And then once you have done that, there are some pictures to give you some inspiration because we would like 5 sentences about space with relative clauses in. They don't have to be linked sentences, they can just be individual ones about different things, but they all must include relative clauses. Make sure you've used the correct relative pronoun and that you've actually made them exciting, not just dead standard ones. Try and get them as exciting as possible. Try and use your sentence starter learning from yesterday. Remember, don't make them all start with the. And also try and mix up the relative pronouns that you use. So if you use which for the first one, don't use which for the next 4 as well. Okay, you've got this, you can do this. Once you've done, press hand in for us.